All right, so we're diving deep today into prepping for a Water Conservation Technician Supervisor interview.
Definitely a cool role.
Yeah, for sure. And we're lucky enough to have some great material to work with.
Right, we've got the RoleCatcher Career Guide and their interview guide, too.
Yep, so we're going to pull out some of the most insightful tips from those guides and really break down what makes a standout candidate in this field.
And it's a field that's only growing, with more and more emphasis on water conservation.
Absolutely, it's a hot topic these days. Did you know that the demand for these supervisors is actually projected to increase significantly over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great time to be getting into this kind of work.
No doubt.
Right.
So let's get right to it and start with the basics. What exactly does a Water Conservation Technician Supervisor do?
Well, in a nutshell, you're leading the team that makes sure water is used responsibly and efficiently.
Okay, so we're talking about more than just fixing leaky faucets.
Oh yeah, much more. You're overseeing the installation of all kinds of systems.
Like what specifically?
Well, think about things like rainwater harvesting systems, gray water recycling, reusing water from showers and sinks.
So it's a pretty hands-on role.
It is, but it's also a lot about leadership, managing the team, making sure everything's done safely and by the book.
Right, because there are a lot of regulations involved in water conservation.
Absolutely. So you need to be on top of all of that, too.
So you're part tech expert, part manager, part rule follower. Sounds like a pretty dynamic position.
Definitely keeps things interesting, that's for sure.
No kidding. Well, let's jump into the interview questions then and see what kind of questions they like to ask these folks.
Sounds good.
The first one in the RoleCatcher guide is pretty straightforward. Can you tell us about your experience in water conservation?
Yeah, you'll probably get that one in almost any interview for this type of job.
Seems simple enough, but what are they really looking for when they ask this?
Well, they want to hear about your passion for this field, what got you interested in water conservation in the first place.
Right, because everyone has a story.
Exactly, and they want to hear yours, but they also want to know about the depth of your knowledge.
So not just, I care about water, but I know how to conserve it.
Yeah, and most importantly, they want to see how you've applied your skills and experience in real-world situations.
Give us an example of what that might look like.
Okay, so let's say you worked on a project where you installed a rainwater harvesting system for a big office building.
Okay, I can see that.
You could talk about the challenges you faced, how you overcame them, the results you achieved.
So quantifying those results is key.
Absolutely. Numbers speak volumes. You could say something like, we successfully reduced the building's reliance on municipal water by 30%, exceeding our initial projections.
That's impressive.
Right. And it shows them that you understand the impact of your work.
Now, what kind of follow-up questions might they ask after you've shared your experience?
Well, they might want to know more about the specifics of the project you mentioned, like what were some of the biggest challenges you faced, or how did you manage the project budget?
So be prepared to go into detail.
Right. And they might also ask about your approach to problem solving in general, or how you stay up to date on new technologies in the field.
Okay, so you really need to know your stuff.
You do, but that's where the RoleCatcher Career Guide comes in handy. It's got a ton of great info on the technical side of things.
That's awesome. All right, so to sum up, when answering that first question about your experience in water conservation, remember to highlight your passion, your knowledge, and your results.
And don't be afraid to toot your own horn a little bit, share those successes.
Exactly. Show them what you're capable of.
Now, one thing that can really help you fine-tune your answers is RoleCatcher's AI.
Yeah, their AI is pretty cool.
It is. It can actually analyze the specific job description and suggest ways to tailor your responses to highlight the skills they're looking for.
So it's like having a personalized interview coach.
Pretty much.
That's awesome. Okay, on to question number 2. How do you ensure compliance with water conservation regulations and standards?
Yeah, that's a big one.
This one's a little more technical, but what's the underlying message here?
I think they're really trying to gauge your sense of responsibility and your commitment to doing things by the book.
Because in this field, there are a lot of rules and regulations you need to follow.
Absolutely. And they want to know that you take that seriously.
So it's not enough to just know the regulations you need to be able to enforce them on the ground.
Right. And you need to be able to explain how you do that.
Okay, so what kind of things could you mention in your answer?
You could talk about things like conducting regular inspections of water conservation systems, developing training programs for your team, documenting and reporting any issues you find.
So showing that you have a system in place is important.
Yes. It shows that you're proactive and organized.
Now, what if they ask you to describe a specific time you had to deal with a compliance issue?
Oh, well, they'll probably do that. They want to see how you handle those tricky situations.
Yeah, because it's one thing to talk about it in theory, but another to actually have dealt with it in real life.
Exactly. So have an example ready to go, something where you identified a problem, took action to correct it, and made sure everything was brought back into compliance.
Okay, so let's say you noticed that a gray water recycling system wasn't being properly maintained.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
You could say, I immediately reviewed the relevant regulations, updated our protocols, and conducted training sessions for my team to ensure everyone was on the same page.
So taking ownership of the situation and showing that you took steps to prevent it from happening again.
Exactly. And you could even add something like, it was important to me that we not only met the letter of the law, but also upheld the spirit of responsible water conservation.
Yeah, showing that you're not just ticking boxes, but that you actually care about the bigger picture.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's about protecting our precious water resources.
Absolutely. Okay, on to question number 3. How do you prioritize water conservation efforts?
Ooh, this is where the strategic thinking comes in.
Yeah, because there's so many different ways to conserve water.
Right, you've got to be smart about where you focus your efforts.
So what are they looking for in your answer to this question?
They want to see that you can analyze data, assess needs, and make strategic decisions about where to allocate resources.
Because resources are always limited.
Exactly. So you might talk about how you've used data analysis to identify the biggest areas of water waste.
Or how you had to make tough choices about which projects to prioritize based on budget constraints.
Right. Those are the kind of real-world examples that will impress them.
And what about potential follow-up questions?
They might ask you to describe a time when you had to adjust your priorities based on new information or changing circumstances.
So being flexible and adaptable is key.
Definitely. And they might also want to know how you balance competing demands, especially when resources are limited.
Okay, so let's hear a sample response that showcases a structured approach to prioritization.
Something like, I prioritize water conservation efforts based on a combination of data analysis, community needs, and long-term sustainability goals.
Okay, so that's a good starting point.
Right. And then you can go on to give a specific example like, for instance, in a previous project, we were tasked with upgrading irrigation systems in a city park. After analyzing water usage data, I realized we could achieve significant savings by implementing a smart irrigation system that adjusts watering schedules based on real-time weather conditions. While this involved a higher initial investment, the long-term water savings and reduced environmental impact made it the clear priority.
I like that you're quantifying the impact again. It really drives the point home.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help you tailor this answer even further. It can analyze the job description and suggest ways to emphasize the specific prioritization skills they're looking for.
It's like having a secret weapon for interview prep.
I know, right? Okay, let's move on to question number 4. How do you communicate water conservation initiatives to stakeholders?
Communication is key in any leadership role, right?
Oh, absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's especially important in this field because you're dealing with such a diverse range of stakeholders.
Like, who are we talking about here?
Well, you've got your own team of technicians, of course, but you're also communicating with community groups, government agencies, the general public.
So you need to be able to tailor your message to different audiences.
Right. What works for a group of engineers might not work for a group of elementary school kids.
Makes sense. So what are some key things to highlight in your answer to this question?
Well, you could talk about your experience with developing presentations, creating educational materials, or leading workshops. And you could also mention your communication style. Are you clear and concise? Do you use visuals effectively? Are you good at explaining complex topics in a way that everyone can understand?
Yeah, those are all important skills. What about follow-up questions? What else might they want to know about your communication skills?
They might ask something like, how do you handle challenging questions or pushback from stakeholders? Or, can you describe a time when you had to communicate a complex water conservation concept to a non-technical audience?
Okay, so let's hear a sample response that highlights effective communication strategies.
How about this? I believe in clear, concise communication tailored to my audience. For technical stakeholders, I provide data and detailed analysis. For community groups, I use plain language visuals and even hands-on activities to make the information engaging and accessible. For example, I once developed a series of infographics and a website to educate residents about the benefits of rainwater harvesting. It was a huge success, with many people adopting rainwater harvesting systems in their homes.
That's a great example. It shows that you can communicate effectively with different audiences and achieve positive results.
And if you want to refine your communication style even further, RoleCatcher's video practice tool can be incredibly helpful. Their AI will analyze your delivery and give you feedback on your tone, pace, and body language.
So you can really polish your presentation skills.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to question number 5.
Okay, bring it on.
Okay, so Picking up where we left off, question number 5 from the RoleCatcher guide is, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of water conservation initiatives?
Getting into the data side of things.
Definitely, you need to be able to show that your efforts are actually making a difference.
So it's not enough to just implement those initiatives. You've got to track their success.
Exactly. And that means setting clear goals and metrics from the get-go.
Right, like how much water are we aiming to save?
Exactly. And then you need to collect data before and after implementing the initiative.
So you have a baseline to compare to.
Right. And then you analyze those results to see if you met your goals.
Okay, so what kind of follow-up questions might they ask about your evaluation process?
Well, they might ask, how do you use data to inform your decision-making? Or, can you describe a time when you had to adjust a water conservation initiative based on the evaluation results?
So being able to adapt and make changes based on the data is important.
Absolutely, because sometimes things don't go exactly as planned.
Makes sense. Okay, let's create a sample response that showcases a data-driven approach to evaluation.
All right, so you could say something like, I believe in a data-driven approach to evaluating the effectiveness of water conservation initiatives. For instance, when we implemented a smart irrigation system in a city park, we set a target of reducing water usage by 20%. We tracked water consumption before and after installation, and the data revealed a 25% reduction, exceeding our goal.
That's awesome.
Right. And then you could add something like, I then compiled a report outlining the project's success, including cost savings and environmental benefits. This data-driven approach allows me to demonstrate the value of our work and make informed decisions about future initiatives.
That's a solid response. It shows that you understand the importance of data and that you can use it to make a real impact.
And again, RoleCatcher's AI can help you tailor this answer to the specific job you're applying for. It'll analyze the job description and suggest ways to highlight the specific evaluation skills they're looking for.
It's like having a cheat sheet for your interview.
Pretty much. Okay, moving on to question number 6. How do you manage a team of water conservation technicians?
This is where the leadership skills come into play.
For sure, they want to know that you can not only manage tasks, but also manage people.
So it's about being more than just a boss. It's about being a leader.
Exactly. They're looking for someone who can motivate, inspire, and guide their team to achieve those water conservation goals.
Right, because a team is only as strong as its leader.
Exactly. So think about your leadership style. Are you collaborative? Do you delegate effectively? Do you provide clear directions and support? Do you foster a positive and productive work environment?
Yeah, those are all important qualities to highlight. And what about follow-up questions? What might they ask to probe your leadership style and experience?
They might ask, can you describe your approach to conflict resolution within a team? Or, how do you motivate your team to achieve high performance? Or even, how do you handle underperforming team members?
So be prepared to talk about the tough stuff too.
Right, because leadership isn't always easy.
Okay, let's put together a sample response that showcases a strong and effective leadership style.
All right, how about this? I believe in a collaborative and empowering leadership style. I set clear expectations, delegate tasks based on individual strength, provide regular feedback and support, and encourage open communication within my team. For example, when faced with a challenging project, I facilitated brainstorming sessions to gather input from all team members and leverage their diverse expertise. This collaborative approach not only led to a more creative and effective solution, but also fostered a stronger sense of teamwork and ownership.
I like that you emphasize collaboration and empowerment. It shows that you value your team members and their contributions.
And that's really important for building a strong and cohesive team.
Absolutely. And speaking of building, let's take a moment to talk about something that can really help you build a strong foundation for your interview prep, RoleCatcher's AI-powered platform.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's an incredible resource for anyone preparing for job interviews.
We've already touched on their AI feedback feature, which can help you tailor your answers to specific job roles. But they also offer a video practice tool that's specifically designed to help you improve your communication skills and build confidence.
It's like having a personal interview coach right at your fingertips.
Okay, with that in mind, let's get back to our interview questions. We still have a few more to cover, so be sure to join us for Chiggy Dav. Part 3, this deep dive. We'll continue to break down these challenging questions, provide you with insider tips, and show you how to leverage the power of RoleCatcher's AI to really nail that interview. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into prepping for that Water Conservation Technician Supervisor interview.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, for sure. But before we wrap up, any final pearls of wisdom for our listener who's getting ready to wow those interviewers?
Well, you've gotten so much good advice already, but if I could just emphasize one thing, it would be to let that passion shine through.
Ah, yes, the passion for water for the environment.
Exactly. This field, it attracts people who really care about making a difference.
Absolutely. And that enthusiasm is contagious.
It really is.
Right.
It shows you're
Wow.
not just there for a paycheck. You're there because you believe in the mission.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to sum up, preparation is key. The role, the company, the industry, and practice, practice, practice those answers.
Yeah, those behavioral questions, where they ask about your experience, those can be tricky.
Definitely, the more you rehearse, the smoother and more confident you'll sound.
Exactly. And don't forget about all those great tools RoleCatcher has to offer.
Right. Their AI feedback can really help you fine-tune your answers. And that video practice tool, it's like having a personal coach in your pocket.
Seriously, it's a game changer.
Okay, another crucial point. Be yourself. Be genuine. Let your personality shine through.
Yeah, they want to see the real you, not some robot reciting memorized answers.
And it's okay to be nervous. Everyone gets butterflies before an interview.
Oh, absolutely. Just channel that nervous energy into positive enthusiasm.
I like that. And one final tip that often gets overlooked, ask questions.
Ah, yes, such a good point.
An interview is a two-way street. It's a chance for you to learn about them, too.
Exactly.
Ask thoughtful questions that show you've done your research and that you're genuinely interested.
It shows you're engaged, you're curious, and it helps you decide if this is the right fit for you, too.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ah,
Okay, I think we've given our listener everything they need to ace that interview.
I think so, too. They've got the knowledge, the strategies, and the confidence to succeed.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought as water becomes even more precious in our world. What role do you envision playing in shaping the future of water conservation?
It's a big question, but an important one. Explore RoleCatcher's resources, connect with others in the field, and never stop learning and growing.
The future of water conservation depends on passionate and dedicated individuals like you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
Good luck in your interview and in your future career as a water conservation technician supervisor.